one by one. So we'll just focus on that part of the purport that's on this fifth one, the abandoning the association of non-devotees. So Srila Prabhupada writes, furthermore, in order to be successful in devotional service, one must give up the association of undesirable people. This includes karmis, jnanis, yogis, and other non-devotees. Once Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked by one of his householder devotees about the general principles of Vaishnavism, as well as the general routine activities of the Vaishnav. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately replied, Asat Sangha Tyaga e Vaishnavachar. Characteristically, a Vaishnav is one who gives up the association of worldly people or non-devotees. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has therefore recommended Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakti Sanevas. One has to live in the company of pure devotees and execute the regulative principles laid down by the previous acharyas, the 6 Goswamis, namely Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. If one lives in the association of devotees, there is little chance of associating with non-devotees. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness is opening many centers just to invite people to live in the company of devotees and practice the regulative principles of spiritual life. So, Srila Prabhupada is already giving us a clue here. Well, the principle is to abandon the association of non-devotees. So he's giving us a description of who these non-devotees, undesirable people are to avoid, and how we go about doing it by doing the opposite. By being surrounded by the association of devotees, we'll automatically avoid the association of the undesirable people. And just at this point in time, if you're feeling like you've heard this before, if it's like a deja vu moment, like I've seen or heard this before, you'll be right, because in the preceding verse to this, in verse 2, this was mentioned. Now, verse 3 we just said, and it was about what principles are favorable for devotional service. Verse 2 was giving us, it says here, one's devotional service is spoiled when he becomes entangled in these following activities. And if we look at the fifth principle here in verse 2, it says, associating with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. So it's kind of repetitious. Rupa Goswami is saying that our devotional service is spoiled when we associate with worldly minded persons who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And one of the favorable principles is abandoning the association of people who are not interested in Krishna consciousness. And then if we look in just the small segment of the verse 2 purport, we'll find some similar things to verse 3, where Prabhupada says, Jana Sangha, here it's described as Jana Sangha, refers to associating with persons not interested in Krishna consciousness. One should strictly avoid such association. And he mentions again here that Narottam Das Thakur has advised us to live in the association of devotees. He also mentions association with those engaged in a similar line of business is very conducive to advancement in that business. Consequently, materialistic persons form various associations and clubs to enhance their endeavors. For example, in the business world, we find such institutions as the Stock Exchange and Chamber of Commerce. Similarly, we have established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to give people an opportunity to associate with those who have not forgotten Krishna. So, it's a similar theme to the verse 3 purport that we just read, with some slight details more, but we'll see that, well, Srila Rupa Goswami mentioned, he repeated that point in the verses. Prabhupada repeated the points in the purport, so that's why I'm repeating the points here. So, one reason why we find repetition is to give emphasis or importance. Like, there's a famous verse, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. Kalo Nascheva, Nascheva, Nascheva Gatiranyata, where basically the verse is saying one must chant the holy name, one must chant the holy name, one must chant the holy name. So that emphasis is given 3 times there. It's repeated to give that emphasis and importance. And here as well we're seeing Rupa Goswami and Prabhupada giving importance to this point of association. And we come across this verse, which is quite a famous one. One should associate with devotees, chant the holy name of the Lord, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, reside at Mathura, and worship the deity with faith and veneration. These 5 limbs of devotional service are the best of all. Even a slight performance of these 5 awakens love for Krishna. So these 5 processes are known as like the 5 most potent limbs of devotional service, because even a slight bit of doing these 5 activities has tremendous benefit. And of course, the first one mentioned here is one should associate with devotees. So there's this point of association that's being emphasized in 2 consecutive verses, and then we see even in the following verses in Nectar of Instruction, verses 4 to 6, it's very much based on association. It's how to associate and how to associate with different levels of devotees, etc. So it's gearing us in that direction, that this part of the work is all about association. And we see some strong warnings actually about association. Like even the terminology used here is not regulate our association with non-devotees. It's not minimize association with non-devotees. It's abandon. Abandon association with non-devotees or materialistic people. And then, if we look at the Nectar of Devotion, chapter 7, Lord Chaitanya explains there's 2 kinds of non-devotees. One is against the supremacy of Krishna, and another class is too materialistic, and their company should be strictly avoided. And then it goes even further. This in chapter 7 of the Nectar of Devotion, it's mentioned, in the Katyayana Samhita, it is stated that even if one is forced to live within a cage of iron or in the midst of a blazing fire, he should accept this position rather than live with non-devotees who are through and through against the supremacy of the Lord. Similarly, in the Vishnu Rahasya, there is a statement to the effect that one should prefer to embrace a snake, a tiger, or an alligator rather than associate with persons who are worshippers of various demigods and who are impelled by material desire. So these are quite strong statements, you know. You rather embrace a snake rather than associate with someone who's not even, he's, you know, a worshipper of a demigod. He's not even like someone necessarily antagonistic to the Supreme Lord, but he's just, he's not discovered the supremacy of the Lord yet. But it's better to embrace a snake rather than... So there's quite some strong statements here. And we might wonder why there are such strong statements and why association is given so much emphasis and so many warnings and so much emphasis on good association, so much emphasis on avoiding bad association. And I think I forgot to put this in the slideshow, but elsewhere it's mentioned Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha, where one develops one desires according to the association one keeps. And when we see this practically, and Prabhupada gives the example of a drunkard a person who hangs out in the bar all day around drunk people, sooner or later they're going to be drunk themselves, even if they didn't go there. It just, the association of everyone you keep around you naturally affects you, and you develop those same desires. So in the same way, it's important for us to be around spiritually minded people, and people aspiring to be devotees, and then we can develop their qualities as well. So now the question, or the question may arise that, okay, how now we know how bad this bad association is for our spiritual life. We know how much we need the good association. So how do we go about actually doing this? Because does this mean we have to quit our jobs and we can only be in the temple all day? Does it mean we have to leave school? We have to leave our families sometimes? Maybe our families are not the best association spiritually. Is this what it means? And so this, I think, is related to the principle of giving an association and taking association, which we need to understand. I didn't actually see Prabhupada refer to these terms of like giving association and taking association, but I've heard devotees mention it, and then we can understand it based on, like, for example, this famous verse which gives the description of the second class devotee, which is something we should aspire to be, at least myself. The second class devotee offers his love to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is a sincere friend to all the devotees of the Lord, shows mercy to ignorant people who are innocent, and disregards those who are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's 4 categories of dealing with people. Obviously the Supreme Lord you worship. The devotees of the Lord you have friendship with, and you take their association, especially advanced senior devotees. And then to ignorant people who we might find who are innocent, they just don't perhaps know much about spiritual life, we can share Krishna consciousness with them. But those who are envious of the Supreme Lord, we have to disregard and avoid. So the giving association is for the innocent, ignorant people. We should give them association, and that we take association from the devotees, especially the advanced devotees. But the people who are envious of the Supreme Lord, we absolutely have to avoid them at all costs, because if we associate with them, then perhaps we'll rediscover our envy of the Supreme Lord, and it will have a bad effect on us. So, what is association? Just to clarify, Srila Prabhupada mentions in this lecture, don't associate with non-devotee. If you want to make progress, don't associate. Associate does not mean to talk with a non-devotee is association. No. That we have to do. As gentlemen, as devotee, we can, but not intimately. Associate means dadati pratigrahanati punkte bojayate chaiva guyam akyati prachiti. These are intimate relationship dealing. Giving something to your friend, accepting something from your friend, feeding your friend, accept food from him, and disclose your mind to your friend and understand his mind. So Prabhupada here is referring to the next verse of the Nectar of Instruction, which is the 6 loving exchanges between devotees. And basically it's about giving and receiving food, giving and receiving gifts, and also sharing our mind in confidence with others, and also letting them reveal their mind to us. So that is association, and this is the thing that we have to do with people favorable to spiritual life, and we have to avoid with people unfavorable to spiritual life. So when they say non-devotee association, it doesn't mean we have to like stop talking to anyone who's not interested in spiritual life. No, you can talk to them, you can do all the normal stuff, like, you can greet them and things, but not intimately. This is a key part. So we don't reveal our minds to them, share our hearts with them. We don't even, we're not even there to let them reveal their hearts to us. So we just have minimum human kind of contact with them, the envious people of God. And I think Prabhupada tells a nice story about this. He said it a few times, about the monkey and the crocodile. So, this story of the monkey and the crocodile, I think, exists, and many people mention it, but Prabhupada mentions it specifically in dealing with this topic. So, once there was a crocodile who saw a monkey sitting on a tree. And so the crocodile told the monkey, just hop on my back and I'll take you for a ride and across the river. And so the foolish monkey agreed. He hopped onto the crocodile's back, and now they're in the middle of the river. The crocodile is swimming. And then the monkey asked the crocodile, so where are we going? And then the crocodile said, we're going to my wife. She's going to cut your heart out and we're going to eat it for lunch. And then the foolish monkey who got on the crocodile suddenly had a moment of intelligence and said, oh, you want to cut my heart and have it for lunch? You should have told me. I left my heart back on the tree. I left it at home. And so then the crocodile said, oh, okay, we have to go back and get it now. So then the crocodile went back to the monkey's tree, and the monkey hopped off, and his life was saved that way, because now the crocodile had a moment of foolishness. So the moral in this context of that story which Prabhupada gave is, you can deal with non-devotees, but leave your heart at home. So I guess the crocodile like non-devotees, but don't bring your heart to the association with those who are not inclined to spiritual life. And so leave your heart at home. That was the lesson of that story in this context. Then some other things that how we should deal with those not inclined to spiritual life is we should not look down upon them, because a devotee respects even an ant. What to speak of other human beings, so it's not meant, everything that we've discussed so far about how we should avoid association of non-devotees is not for looking down upon them. It's not to have some sort of moral superiority, like I'm a devotee, you're not, and I'm better than you. It's not meant for us to develop this kind of attitude. It's meant as a safeguard for ourselves. It's meant to maintain our spiritual health. I like this one thing from purport in the Bhagavatam. Actually, a living being cannot be a non-devotee of the Lord because of his constitutional position. But when one becomes a non-devotee or non-believer, it is to be understood that the person concerned is not in a sound condition of life. So, I like this. Well, I actually don't even like using the terminology non-devotee, Especially, for us in this audience here, we understand, devotees and non-devotees. But, when we keep on using this terminology and it becomes part of our everyday life, next thing you go on the street and you start talking about non-devotees to them, and it doesn't sound like a nice positive way. And the actual fact is that no one is actually a non-devotee of the Lord, because the constitutional position of everyone is that they the eternal servant of Krishna. So everyone actually is a devotee. It's just that they are not in a sound condition of life currently, as the purport puts it. So it's basically about maintaining our spiritual health. That's what these verses are telling us. It's not to look down upon others. It's not even to be classifying people as devotees, non-devotees. It's meant for our health. It's like, let's say, and a very topical example right now is COVID. And, let's say there's a COVID outbreak amongst a group of people. Naturally, we have to isolate, and, you don't go and associate, you don't interact with those people. That's not because we don't like those people. It's not because, we don't have anything against the people at all. It's just to protect our health from their current condition that they're in. So in the same way, that's what avoiding this association is all about. We have some sort of spiritual health that we've regained. We've developed some sort of we've made some sort of spiritual progress. There are others who can infect us with their ideas, with their lifestyle. So we need to avoid them, just to avoid being infected in a sense, or by their behavior and their qualities. So that's all that it's about. We have nothing against the people. It's just to protect ourselves, our own spiritual health. Therefore we avoid it the same way we avoid sick people. Another thing we should do, or we shouldn't do, is be impersonal in our dealings. I listened to a class by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, who the title of the class was The Invisible Impersonalism Within Us. Because he noted that sometimes we have impersonal dealings with each other, even with devotees. And this kind of goes against our movement, which is very personal. Our movement is extremely personal. We understand that the absolute truth, the supreme, exists in 3 levels of realization. One level of realization is the impersonal Brahman realization. The next slightly higher realization is the Paramatma realization, where the Lord in the hearts of all the living entities. But the highest realization is that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and Prabhupada uses that phrase very emphatically, and he introduced that phrase, the supreme personality of Godhead. So our movement is probably the most personal movement one can get. Many people know about God, at least to some extent, but our movement is, like, what does God look like? Who are His friends? What does He do on a daily basis? It's very, very, very personal. And we meant to rediscover our personal relationship with God, ultimately. So, for a movement that is so highly personal, we can't really afford to have impersonal dealings with each other. Shri Shri Radharanath ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Giriraj Govardhan ki jai. So therefore, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu gave this class where he mentioned about the invisible impersonalism within us. And one of the points that he made was we should not treat conscious beings as abstract philosophical categories, because when we learn about these when we go deeper into our philosophy and we learn about karmis, jnanis, yogis, etc., there may be a tendency to kind of stamp people. Like, oh, okay, this one's a karmi, this one's a jnani, this one's a yogi, this one's a mayavadi, this one's an atheist. And we cannot be reducing conscious beings to abstract philosophical categories. For purposes, obviously, like what we've mentioned, we don't want to take association from these people. Definitely we need to be guarded about that. But we can't treat them as less than people. They are people, they have feelings, they get hurt. We have to be cognizant of all and sensitive in our dealings with everyone, devotees and non-devotees. And we can't reduce conscious beings to these abstract philosophical categories. So our movement is very, very personal. We can't be impersonal in our dealings, because then sometimes people have an impersonal philosophy and they deal with each other better. So then we're not aligned with our own philosophy, and then it appears to others that perhaps their movement is something bona fide because their dealings are more caring or personal. So we can't allow those types of things to creep in, even in our dealings with non-devotees. And then we have a practical example of how to deal with non-devotees. Obviously, this is a very elevated example. This is Srila Rupa Goswami, who's the author of this book, Nectar of the Upadesh Amrita. So he's the author of this book, and he's emphasizing so much about association, about how dangerous bad association is, how favorable good association is, and then after that he even explained those 3 verses are based on association. And if we look at his personal life, we'll see that he had some challenges as well, because he was born in a very nice, favorable family, but he ended up serving under the ruler at the time, who was a kind of a brutal Muslim ruler, the Nawab Hussain Shah. And I mean, he was like a really brutal person, very violent, and they were always generally antagonistic to. They didn't allow people to practice religion generally. Well, outside of Islam, I guess. And then at that time in Bengal, there were lots of, well, not a lot, but there were definitely a fair amount of Vaishnavas. But fortunately, Rupa Goswami, because he was employed as a minister of the Nawab Hussain, the Vaishnavas had kind of some safety to practice their religion. So Rupa Goswami was serving despite this unfavorable association. And it was tough, because he was even rejected by his own community. He was renamed. Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami were given the names Sakar Malik and Dabir Khas. So they were completely ostracized from their own community, and so they didn't have much association at all, but still they were serving, and despite this unfavorable association. So it is possible. Obviously, these are very elevated personalities, and we obviously need good association. We shouldn't try and do it alone, but these are there as examples for us to look up to and understand attitude towards association, favorable and unfavorable. So, okay, we're making good time, I think. So, to conclude, we're just going to look at a book by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur called Bhaktya Loka, which goes quite in depth into a lot of the Nectar of Instruction. And okay, I think it's slightly visible. Basically, it's kind of summarized in this diagram here. He goes in depth into non-devotee association, and he divides it into two aspects. One is association and the other is attachment. And then he further divides association into one topic is non-devotees, which he kind of spoke about, but he enumerates all the different types of he classifies non-devotees as those who are not subordinate to the Lord, or who don't subordinate themselves to the Lord. And then he gives various examples: jnanis, mundane scholars; karmis, fruitive workers; yogis, demigod worshippers; dry logicians; atheists, and sense enjoyers. And then interestingly, he has a whole other category for women and womanizers. So obviously this is told from the male perspective, that males should not associate with women and associate with those who are fond of women. But obviously it applies the other way around as well, like women should not associate with men. And when we're saying associate, what he's saying is in the mood of sense gratification, in the mood of sense enjoyment. Because that association is very dangerous for us. To be attached to those who are attached to sense enjoyment, that association is very dangerous for our spiritual life, because we develop those qualities as well. Then under the category of attachment, one part is assets, subtle and gross. So being attached to material things, like our possessions, he classifies that under non-devotee association. And then prejudices, ancient and modern. So ancient prejudices are described as the things that the opinions that we came into this life with, or we have our nature that we have right now. Okay, our nature that we have right now is influenced by who we were in the past, in our previous lives. So, and we born with this, and we have certain opinions, certain ideas that we just think are right, and we attach to them, and they just were with us from the past. And then not only that, we got some modern prejudices, which ideas that we develop in this lifetime, and we're just very, very attached to. And they're not necessarily Krishna conscious. So those he classifies also under non-devotee association. And obviously, well, he gives the same solution that Prabhupada gave and Rupa Goswami gave, that one way to combat this negative association of non-devotees is obviously to associate with devotees, and especially advanced devotees. And regarding attachments, well, I don't think he mentioned this, but one thing we can understand if we have attachment to assets is that we can engage it in Krishna's service and therefore purify that attachment at least somewhat. And I think, for prejudices, he also mentions, yes, to associate with devotees, removes those prejudices as well. So I think that was everything. Oh, okay, yes. Oh, yes, he gives another point there, that one needs to always associate with devotees. One should associate with affectionate devotees who are more advanced, yet of the same temperament. So this is another aspect of association that's important and possibly overlooked. Sometimes there's many senior devotees, there's many advanced devotees in our midst, and it's better to associate with those who have the same temperament as us. Because, like-minded devotees. Because sometimes even if we associate with an advanced devotee, if we don't have the same temperament as them, that might not be so favorable. We might, become offensive, or it just might not be healthy for our attitude towards devotional service, or diminish our enthusiasm, which is something else mentioned in the beginning of verse 3. So, and just to end, we'll mention something about the power of the devotee association. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that the foremost instruction of Sri Ramanuja Acharya is this: if you cannot purify yourself by any endeavor whatsoever, then just go sit with the Vaishnavas and you will achieve all auspiciousness. And then one verse I like from the Bhagavatam is, one can gradually become purified by seeing, touching and worshipping temple deities, places of pilgrimage and holy rivers. But one can attain the same result immediately, simply by receiving the glance of exalted sages. So for me, this last two are personally my approach. I can't say that I know how to serve the devotees or I know how to serve the Lord. But I think the main reason I come to the temple is just to receive the glance of all of you and just go sit with the Vaishnavas and achieve all auspiciousness. This is my personal main reason for coming to the temple, just to receive the glance of the Lord, receive the glance of the devotees, and hopefully be purified by that. So, on that note, we'll conclude, and I hope it was of some benefit, and even if it wasn't of some benefit, thank you for tolerating. And all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Are there any questions or comments or corrections?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I was thinking about the example of Bova Mangala Thakur, how he was a great devotee and then he was associating with a prostitute, and then in that way he also became engrossed in sense gratification. But then it's amazing that his spiritual master actually spoke through her, and he received his Guru Maharaj's association through another person, and in that way came back to his senses, because she told him, if you were as attached to Krishna as you are to me, you would be a pure devotee. So this is the potency of association, even through her, of the Guru. I just think that's amazing, that just one moment's association brought him back.
Yeah, that is an amazing example. Of course, he also had to suffer a bit before that. And I think at one point, the association was going both ways also. It was like he was attached to her, then he tried to give it up. Then when he got reattached, that's when he's saying, you know what, this is too much. And then that's when he blinded himself. So yeah, it's a wonderful pastime of how the Lord can come even through the association of someone we would think is undesirable association for us, and that's the mercy of his spiritual master. And thank you for that.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I had one question about associating with like-minded devotees. I was thinking that sometimes because no one's always like-minded, but at the same time, sometimes if if we're just associated with those who are like-minded, then we're never tested, and our ideologies and our what we think is best and what we think is most important, none of it is really tested. So how would we find that bridge if we, because it was interesting that it said affectionate, you know. So sometimes if we just stay around association that's nice, you know, would it curb our growth?
Yeah, that's a good point. I know Jay Shetty often makes the point that we live in echo chambers, where we surround ourselves by people who are just like us. And well, he especially makes that point about if you keep on surrounding yourself by people like you, like all your work friends, and everyone's the same, and everyone does the same job, and everyone has the same way, like, how do you even, get the benefits outside of that? Like, he only, when he met a monk, that's when he, started being interested in spiritual life. So that's very true, that if we only associate with those who are like us, we're possibly missing out on some benefit, some advancement, some purification. And then there's how to bridge the gap, I think, is your guess better than mine. But I would, to me, just it seemed like a balance would be nice. Like maybe to start off with, have 100% of like-minded association and develop some nice enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness that way. And then slowly but surely you can add association which is not so like-minded, and just for your own development, just to get exposed to others. But whenever that becomes unfavorable to our progress, then we probably need to pause at that point, because there's a tension there between advancing in our spiritual practice and also remaining enthusiastic to even practice Krishna consciousness. I think I forgot to mention that as well. There's another kind of tension between being compassionate to the living entities in general and sharing Krishna consciousness with them, and taking their association. Because at one point we might think, yay, I'm preaching, I'm doing so nice, I'm being compassionate with everyone, but slowly but surely I'm actually associating with them and getting their qualities. So I think it needs some introspection with ourselves and with senior devotees to see, am my material desires that I thought I had conquered, are they coming back again? Are new material desires that were never there to begin with, are they finding their way here? Am I suddenly committing offenses to devotees? Am I suddenly there's lots of signs that maybe I'm taking too much association from unfavorable people. But yeah, to get back to your point, I think there is a tension there between associating with only like-minded devotees and then gradually getting more association for the purpose of purification. And I think if that's the purpose, then Krishna will see that and he'll purify us through this devotees who are not so like-minded. But if we but there's also a chance that we may just lose enthusiasm for Krishna consciousness if we get too much of association of those who are not like-minded. That's just my personal thought. I don't know if it's bona fide or not. Hare Krishna.
Recently, India began a program where they took a particular, big cat, either it was a leopard or a cheetah, from South Africa to introduce to their territories. And years back in India, apparently this big cat died out. I just want to say that Big cats were not only hunted by the white colonists, but by the royal Hindu families in India, who should not only kill them by arrows, but later on by the white man's gun. In addition, human settlements extended into their territories, making it hard for female big cats to feed their cubs. I want to say that the human is born in, many in Christianity, they say the human is born in God's image. And in Hinduism, they say animals suffer because of their karma. But it's not okay for us to make them suffer, and it's not ordained by God. It's not right. I think in India, like everywhere else, the humans are overpowering and like the mafia of all species. And, they want to take over. And I just want to say that, just like the dinosaurs wanted to dominate the earth, we all saw what happened to them. They were annihilated. So what I want to say is that Mahadurga rode on a lion, Mahakali on a tiger. You can see the gods loved big cats. Lord Vishnu is Narasimha, that's a Sanskrit name. Mahakali is Narasimhi. When Lord Vishnu is Simha, Mahakali's Sanskrit name is Simhi. So I just want to say, even Srila Prabhupada says in Canto 1, Lord Buddha is an incarnation of Godhead. There is no justice when there is animal killing. Lord Buddha wanted to stop it completely, and therefore his cult of ahimsa was propagated not only in India but outside the country. Now I just want to say that, in the 1920s, you'll find photographs of the British royal family, the members, together with the Indian royal families, and you'll find splayed out these cats in front of them, killed, lions, tigers and stuff, and very proudly they were looking at these animals. And as you say about not fraternizing with non-devotees, I see, in the back to Godhead, a magazine, we see a Sruti Dharma Dasa. I suppose he is a big, advanced devotee, but he is fraternizing with someone, a non-devotee of the highest order, that is the Queen of the British royal family. And there's a lovely article about her in the book, although we all know that the royal family loved their tradition of hunting, and they most definitely loved hunting our big cats in India. Haribol.
Okay, so thank you for that. So yes, definitely we need to be guarded against our association of anyone who's unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. Yes, especially those who slaughter animals, etc. This is very unfavorable association for us. Yeah. Are there any other questions, comments? Okay, so thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki.